This episode is brought to you by Pepsi Wild Cherry. Pepsi Wild Cherry is bursting with delicious cherry flavor and a sweet, crisp taste that gives you more to go wild for. Getting wild may look different these days, but whether it's opting for a solo Friday binge watch or a big night out, everyone can indulge in their wild side with Pepsi Wild Cherry. Also available in Zero Sugar. So grab a Pepsi Wild Cherry and get wild.
Judy was boring.
Hello.
Then Judy discovered ChumbaCasino.com.
It's my little escape.
Now Judy's the life of the party.
Oh, baby, mama's bringing home the bacon.
Whoa, take it easy, Judy. The Chumba life is for everybody. So go to ChumbaCasino.com and play over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Lucky Land Casino, asking people, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
Lucky? In line at the deli, I guess?
Aha, in my dentist's office. More than once, actually.
Do I have to say?
Yes, you do.
In the car before my kids' PTA meeting.
Really?
Yes.
Excuse me, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
I never win and tell.
Well, there you have it. You can get lucky anywhere, playing at LuckyLandSlots.com. Play for free right now. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Hello and welcome to the 1865 Match Report as we reflect on Forest's 1-0 defeat to Liverpool in the Premier League. A controversial afternoon at the City Ground as the referee made himself involved in proceedings, giving Liverpool the ball back from a supposed head injury. They then went up the other end and scored when it should have been Forest who were given the ball back to provide a controversial end to the game and deny Forest a hard-earned point. Would have been a crucial point for Forest in their fight for survival at the bottom. It's Steven here and I've got Baz with me. Baz, we're recording this the morning after the game and neither of us have calmed down yet, have we?
We try and make a difference with this podcast and try and do something a little bit different, which is not just like people down the pub ranting about what they've just seen, but it's really not easy to do that today.
No. I'm still seething over it. It just the injustice of it really is what gets you. And yes, Forest could have defended the situation better once Liverpool had got the ball up the other end, but in that situation where Forest have got the ball on the attack and Liverpool are in their own half and under pressure, you don't know what's going to happen, and it changes the game again. And it's yet another decision which...
It's not... Yeah, we had all our players in their box, basically, or right up in their half. And then suddenly the referee's telling us to get into our own half. It's just changed completely the dynamics of what was going on. So,
yeah. We'll discuss it more in depth a little bit later, but we'll start back at the beginning. Looking at the team news, so Forest went with 4-2-3-1 and a couple of changes from the defeat to Manchester United in the FA Cup in midweek. So Matt Sells returning in goal. A back four of Nico Williams, Andrew Omobamidele, Murillo and Harry Toffolo. Dominguez and Yates as the sitting midfielders. Divock Origi playing almost as a right winger. Gibbs White through the middle. Callum Hudson-Odoi on the opposite side. And then up front, Anthony Elanga as the lone striker. And that was key as well because a lot of the big chances ended up falling Elanga's way. I thought an interesting team selection, Baz, but when you look at how the team performed and certainly individuals, it was the right call, wasn't it?
I think it all kind of made sense. Sells obviously coming in made sense. Omobamidele's got a bit more pace than Felipe, who's creaking a little bit. And I think, Dominguez has a bit more big match experience than Danilo, so that kind of made sense in the middle. Origi, I'm sure we'll talk about him later, but again, that made sense, putting him up against his old club. And also, I think, Taiwo against Manchester United looked well short of fitness. He looked really, really rusty, so it made sense to protect him. So, overall, I have no complaints about the lineup.
Yeah, and Taiwo was on the bench, of course, and came on later on. Also, their Danilo, Ibrahim Sangare, Kouyaté, Felipe, Moussa Niakate, Rodrigo Ribeiro, and the youngster Joe Gardner, and also Matt Turner, sub-keeper. So yes, as the game started, I thought the atmosphere was a bit flat in the ground, Baz, to say it was Liverpool. And in that first half in particular, and you agree, don't you? It did seem a little bit off.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I said my prediction for the game was 5-2. And I jokingly said to someone, I don't know who the five's going to go to, but actually, yeah, I got the feeling everyone was like expecting us to get absolutely thumped. And then as the half wore on, so that's why we were all a bit flat. But then as the half wore on and it became apparent that maybe we might be able to get something out of this, then, and especially in the second half, the atmosphere lifted.
Yeah, and Forest's performance actually I thought was really good throughout the game. But in that first half, they allowed Liverpool to have the ball, but they looked threatening on the break, and defensively as well, they looked sound. The first chance for Forest came from Divock Origi. He picked up the ball on halfway, drove forward past a couple of Liverpool players, got to about 20 yards out, and flashed a shot wide of Kelleher's post. A good effort, this from Origi, and a sign of a player who's coming back into confidence. He hasn't really shown this in a Forest shirt, but the last couple of games, he's been looking really good, hasn't he?
Yeah, I think. I mean, I know. Yeah, first of all, for that shot, I think Kelleher would have had it covered, but just to have the confidence to go up and try that shows that he's feeling better about himself. I know that when he joined us, he was coming off the back of an injury. He missed pre-season, and he certainly looked very rusty for the entire first half of the season whenever he has been on the pitch. But as you say, the last 2 or 3 games, he looks like he's getting sharper. He's getting more confident. He's taking people on. He's doing the little spins and beating people. So yeah, it looks like we're getting a player there.
And he was involved again in Forest's first clear-cut chance of the game in that first half. Hudson-Odoi played the ball to Origi down the right-hand side. He fed the ball through for Elanga. The flag stayed down. At first, it looked like Elanga might have been offside, but the flag never came up. And Elanga was through on goal, having beaten the 2 Liverpool defenders for pace. In front of goal, he shoots left-footed and the keeper stops it with his legs. And the chance has gone begging. I think Elanga would want that one again, and he'd probably want it on his right foot as well, wouldn't he?
Yeah, I mean, I think partly I was watching quite carefully, and Elanga was offside, but then he saw that Origi was shaping to pass the ball, so he checks himself. I still thought it was offside when he did it, and then as Elanga receives the ball and is running through, I thought Elanga looked nervous and looked like he was going to screw up the shot. It wasn't. He didn't look confident. He didn't look like he was shaping for it properly. So I wasn't that surprised when Kelleher got a foot to it. But yeah, it probably would have wanted it on his other foot, and he probably would have wanted to not have to check himself in that way, so he could regain his composure. But that's kind of the thing. Playing Origi on the wing, yeah, means that we have to have Elanga as our lone striker, and that's not really his role, is it?
No, that's it. And even though he's got the pace to get in behind, there's still that side of his game, just getting that clinical edge into it and taking those chances when they come along. Liverpool did have an opportunity. It came out of the ball being down the left-hand side. Yates challenged in the air with Robertson. It looked like Robertson put the knee in the back of Yates's leg, but nothing was given by the referee despite Yates going down. Play carries on. The ball finds its way to Bobby Clark, far corner of the penalty area, cuts inside and bends one towards the top corner. Wasn't far away, actually, and that was a warning, because I don't think Sells would have got to it had it been on target. It was a good effort.
Yeah, and I mean, straight after it, the woman who sits behind me went, "We're going to be in for a long afternoon, aren't we?" Because we were kind of expecting to be totally bombarded. So the fact that it took that long for the first real chance for Liverpool was a bit of a surprise.
And then they had one after as well, where they got the ball down the right-hand side, played into the box. I think it might have been Omobamidele did an initial block on a shot. The ball then drops to Diaz in front of goal, and a combination of Sells and Murillo stop him from getting the shot on target. Ball's over the bar and away to safety. And yeah, another scare for Forest. And you were wondering, Liverpool could easily have had a couple of goals there, but they didn't. And it was good defending actually from Forest. I've been quite critical of Forest defending all season, but this was a good example of good defending.
This game was kind of, in many ways, it was kind of perfect for Murillo because of the way Liverpool move the ball and the way they play. He wasn't having to deal with lots and lots of high balls, and his positioning. And I think Ellie said the other week that the way he uses his feet is what makes him such a great defender. And that incident there, the way he read what Diaz was about to do and then just put his feet in the way of it, is a prime example of what Murillo's really, really good at. And I thought he was outstanding all game.
He was. And actually, I think the whole back four performed well. Omobamidele back in. You could have expected him to perhaps be a bit off the pace, but he looked solid. Williams, I think, is getting better all the time, and he dealt well with threats coming down the left. And likewise, Harry Toffolo, he's been one of our best players all season, and he was solid. And the goalkeeper too, Sells, looked assured and looked confident, made some good saves. So all in all, I think it was defensively as good a performance from Forest as we've seen, certainly under Nuno. 0-0 at half-time, so they're going level at the break. The second half, I actually think Forest edged it in terms of performance. They had more of the clear-cut chances, and they just looked more threatening going forward.
I think that, again, Steve Cooper used to do this, but I think it's also Nuno's game plan that we sit tight in the first half and then go at them a little bit. And right from the off in the second half, we were up in their half, trying to keep more of the ball and put them under more pressure. And it showed right from the off. And again, as I say, the crowd were much more confident by then as well. So that probably helped and all.
Yeah, and it just, I think Forest just were building momentum in that second half, and the big chance again fell to Alanga. It was Hudson-Odoi who had the ball down the left-hand side. He cut inside, fed it to Taiwo Awoniyi, who'd come on at this point. He laid it to Harry Toffolo, who plays a lovely low ball across in the box, across the face of goal. It's met by Alanga at the back post, first time, with his left foot. He gets the good connection on it, but the ball goes wide of the post and the chance is gone. I don't think Kelleher gets to that. If it's on target, that's a goal. And it's a big opportunity and another example where you've got to take your chances when they come along.
Yeah, I mean, that should have been a goal for us. That should have been us 1-0 up. The ball from the look from Toffolo to spot Alanga in space was absolutely brilliant, just to pick him out. And what Alanga does, it's like supposed to be like the textbook thing for a striker, is you put it back across the face of goal so that the keeper's off balance. But I think actually, given the situation, he might have been as well to put it in at the near post. Because the Kelleher's positioning, he might not have got to it, but it's Kelleher's positioning that forces Alanga to shoot that little bit wide. But it was an absolutely brilliant chance, and I thought, that was the one. We needed that one to get something out of this.
Yes, the chance doesn't go in, and eventually in this league you are going to get punished for moments like that. Liverpool made a couple of changes. Darwin Nunez came on. A couple of the youngsters as well, like Jadon Dans, came onto the pitch. Forest had brought on Taiwo Awoniyi, and also Danilo came on with about 10, 11 minutes to go. Interesting, Forest only made 2 changes in this game. Didn't use any more substitutes. Which
I don't think we had that many options, really, to be able to change how we were playing, and everyone was playing very, very well and didn't look like they were tiring or struggling. Obviously, I assume Origi went off for Taiwo just because maybe Origi's fitness still isn't there, and obviously we want Taiwo on the field. But apart from that, Dominguez did look like he'd taken a knock, so that's probably why Danilo came on for him. But no one really looked like they were struggling, and it didn't seem like the players that we could have brought on were going to be game changers anyway. So yeah, that kind of explains it from that point of view. Just a word on what's his Nunez. When he came on, he had like 3 sort of half chances that all of which he screwed up, putting one into the side netting, one over, I think it was, and one was taken off him just as he was about to shoot, which probably increased the intensity of our jeers at him. And Jurgen Klopp made a point of pointing that out at the end, saying you don't do that to him because that makes him up, which obviously came back to bite us.
Yep, it did. There was another chance Liverpool had as well. I think Conor Bradley in the box near the byline, crossed it. Dominguez tried to clear it, and in doing so, just passed it to Andy Robertson at the opposite post. To be honest, I'm glad it fell to him rather than somebody like Nunez or one of their attackers, because he put the shot wide, and that felt like a big opportunity that had gone begging from Liverpool's point of view, and a bit of a let-off from Forest. And you wanted to mention, Baz, as well, this penalty shout that Liverpool had involving Jadon Danns and Danilo, and then there was a bit of fallout from it afterwards, wasn't there?
Yeah, so I think it was Danns. So when Danilo came on, it was like he had road rage right from the off. As soon as he came on, he was so wound up. And I think it was Liverpool had a corner, I think. And it was like where I sit, I had a really good view of it. And Danilo basically had both his arms around Danns and dragged him to the floor, but we cleared the ball and the referee didn't see it and the linesman didn't see it. So completely got away with it. And then the ball comes back to our side. The ball, I think Sells like caught it or something like that. And Danns just piles straight into Sells, and he needed like 3 or 4 minutes of treatment after it. And I'm sure that's because he was so wound up at not receiving the penalty, because he was proper protesting, and he was right to protest. It was a blatant penalty. Then from like the subsequent corner and a couple of times after that, the referee had to go over and warn Danilo, because him and Danns were basically at it all the way through. So Danilo was very, very lucky to get away with that.
But as we tend to find, these decisions do have an influence on the game. And like you say, the incident involving Matt Sells and Danns got booked for it. But I think really you could make a case for a red, because if a Forest player did that, we'd be furious with them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know he was wound up by what Danilo did. But yeah, it was pretty dangerous. From where I was, it looked pretty dangerous. So yeah, you can't. They should have had a penalty from it, but then they were lucky after that as well. So there you go.
So as the game went into injury time, Forest were on top and looking to try and get a goal. They had a couple of opportunities and they won a corner. The corner was swung in by Morgan Gibbs-White. It was cleared. The ball came to Callum Hudson-Odoi on the left wing outside the penalty area. Ibrahim Konate, the Liverpool centre-half, he went down clutching his head. The referee, Paul Tierney, stopped the game. And within 10 seconds, Konate was back up on his feet, looked like he had a word with the referee. And then the referee gave the ball to the Liverpool keeper for an uncontested drop kick, essentially giving possession to Liverpool when he should have given it to Forest. And 90 seconds later, Liverpool have gone up the other end and they've scored. And there's so much to unpack here, because talking about the goal itself, so Liverpool had the ball on the edge of the Forest box. It was Elanga and Hudson-Odoi who had opportunities to clear it. Neither of them did properly. The ball comes back to Alexis McAllister. He swings the ball in. Darwin Nunez gets up, nods it into the back of the net. Liverpool 1-0 up. 98 minutes and 30 seconds on the clock after we should have had 8 minutes of injury time. Liverpool have won the game, but Forest are incensed after what had happened 90 seconds before when they should have been given the ball back and they weren't.
You say there's a lot to unpack there. So it wasn't just like we had like a lone attack. We were putting them under consistent pressure, and that's why Konate went down. Is he needed to relieve the pressure that was happening in front of the Liverpool goal. It was like we'd had like at least a minute of the ball sort of just in and around their box, and they couldn't get out. And so when the referee gives them the ball back, not only do we lose possession, but that pressure is completely dissipated, because instead of us being in and around their box and keeping that pressure on, suddenly we're all at the halfway line and Liverpool have time to build up a head of steam. But then on top of that, there's the fact that Konate goes down, stays down, and then as soon as the whistle blows, he's like, yeah, I'm fine. And you could argue that that's like, I don't know, whatever, cute or smart or whatever, but it's also dishonest. And
it's cheating is what it is. Yeah, because he's abusing the rule that protects players who go down with genuine head injuries. Now, when a player has a head injury, my understanding is the medical team have got to come on and check he's okay to carry on, like what happened with Matt Sells with the incident earlier in the match after his collision with Dan's, or the player has got to go off the pitch for treatment. But neither of those things happen. Konate's back on his feet and it's like, okay, well, the game can restart. But what should have happened is that the ball should have been given back to Forest for an uncontested drop ball where the ball was at the time the game was stopped. Because the ball was outside of the penalty area, it should have gone back to Forest. Had it been inside the penalty area when the whistle was blown, then it should have been given back to the Liverpool keeper. The referee should have known that. That's a law that he has to be on top of, and he doesn't execute the laws of the game properly. And like you say, Baz, Forest have built up a head of steam there. They had Liverpool pen back in their own half. If Forest had given the ball back, okay, we don't know what happens. Liverpool might still have gone up the other end and scored. But there's a good chance Forest would have kept that pressure on and Liverpool would have never got out of their half to be able to go and make the attack that they eventually do.
I mean, that's just leaving aside the fact that it looked like Omobama Deli was taken out during the incident as well. But I mean, I saw this interview with Sean Dyche the other day. I can't remember where I read it. And he was talking about honesty. And he goes, I don't really want to call out any players. Actually, I'm going to call one out. It was Ivan Toney and against Nottingham Forest. And he moved the foam. It's not just that he moved the ball, it's that he moved the foam. And all the commentators and all the pundits were saying, look at that. Isn't that clever? Everyone should do that. That's what a clever thing. And Sean Dyche goes, there's 1 billion people watching that. And everyone's being told that's an all right thing to do. And I disagree. And it's the same thing. It's like, it's not all right. And both of us, we're old enough to remember like nice young men with lovely smiles and how Mr. Clough would tell people not to crowd the referee and have a go at them and stuff like that, because that's not how the game should be played. And I know you need to get every advantage you can, but there's like gaining an advantage and then there's taking advantage. It's like, there are things that we do, no doubt, but we also spent all last season saying, well, if Jono had done what every other striker had done and gone to ground, then we'd have got a penalty there. But he's chosen to be honest and stay on his feet. And I like the fact that we choose to be honest, and I don't like the fact that others don't. It's galling.
And it's not just that either. It's the fact that other players are allowed to not be honest. Like that incident with Konate, VAR should really look at that and say to the referee, no, you've made a mistake there. You've got to give the ball back to Forest. VAR can micro-analyse an offside to determine whether somebody's kneecap is across a line or not. But they can't intervene for an incident like that or what happened to Willy Bolly against Bournemouth. And it's either the referees are incompetent and they just don't know what they're doing, or they are deliberately making decisions that are favouring one team over another. either way, it's wrong, and something's got to be done about this, because there's 5 or 6 incidents now this season that Forest have been on the receiving end of, game-changing decisions, and they certainly haven't evened themselves out over the course of the campaign.
No, we were saying before, if you just take the apologies that we've had from PGMOL, I make it between 4 and 6 points. I mean, obviously, if those decisions hadn't been made, then there's no guarantee that we would have got the points or whatever. So, like, I don't know, if against Newcastle, it was 2-2, and then they score straight after Taiwo was brought down. If Taiwo had got the penalty there, there's no guarantee that we would have scored, but it absolutely changes the flow of the game. It doesn't give Newcastle the opportunity to hit us on the break and go back up the other end. So, yeah, 4 to 6 points just off the apologies. Then there's the other ones where they're not allowed to apologise because VAR wasn't allowed to intervene, like Ivan Toney, like Willie. We got an apology for Willie Bolly, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
But yeah, so the other incidents which haven't counted as formal apologies, you could argue there's at least another 2 or 3 points there, and maybe it doesn't matter to, I don't know, to someone like Brighton, who's like, if that happens consistently over the course of the season, that doesn't matter to a team like Brighton, who are quite comfortable in their position. Maybe they're aiming for Europe, but where they are, they're not in trouble. Whereas we've got what, a 3-point cushion, 4-point cushion now.
Yep.
And we've got the threat of the points deduction, which I'm assuming is going to be 6 points. So that 6 points there, that's the 6 points. It's like it's infuriating, and I can understand why Mr. Marinakis was apparently yelling every week at the officials.
Yeah. And yeah, at the end of the game, well, the whistle was blown not long after Liverpool score, so they've celebrated. Doesn't look like that time's added on at the end to a couple more minutes of play. Whistle blows, game over, Forest have lost. And the scenes at the end, the Forest coaching staff were furious, and rightly so. Felipe was booked. I think he'd been talking to the referee. Stephen Reed was shown a red card for talking to the referee. We don't know what he said. From the footage, it doesn't look like he's overly animated, but he must have said something for the referee to give him that red card. Evangelos Marinakis was down pitch side as well in all of this. The reports were that he chased the referee down the tunnel, but I don't think those are true. They've since been proven to be inaccurate. But nevertheless, the fallout from this at the end just shows you how much of an injustice it is, because Forest have got every right to be furious.
There's no doubt we're going to get charged for this, so we're going to suffer again. Because that final whatever minute and a bit after Tierney had given the ball back to them, the crowd were livid. It's like the entire ground was just ringing out with the words cheat, and booing and everything. And I mean, there's been a couple of times where I've heard like fury like that, but this was as loud and as furious as I've ever heard it. It was, I'm almost like speechless from it.
Yeah, and it carried on out the ground as well as everybody was walking away. Everyone's talking about it. People were furious. And this has been building now for a while, because we have had a couple of bad decisions in more than a few games. You know, you're probably talking 7 or 8 games now where there's been bad decisions given against Forest, and nothing really has been done other than an apology, which doesn't get you the points back at the end of the day.
Well, the other thing I noticed is when it became news that we'd hired Mark Clattenburg, a lot of the like pundits and media commentators were like making fun of us. Well, apparently it's like quite normal to do it in Germany and in Spain to do this anyway. But that says to me they have no idea what's been happening to us. Because I do think, I mean, I don't pay that much attention, but I don't hear other fans complaining about referees and the decisions they get to the same extent that we do, apart from maybe Everton.
Yeah, I think Wolves had it for a while, didn't they? They had a couple
Yeah.
of weeks
Oh,
where
yeah,
they
yeah.
had some bad decisions a little while ago, but that then calmed down and sort of went away. Whereas with Forest, this has been going on now for months.
Yeah. And so I think, and again, it's almost like on Match of the Day after the Newcastle game, and they were like, yeah, that should have been a penalty, blah, 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 blah. And then it was like, why have they hired Mark Clattenburg? And then again, it was like, yeah, the referee got that wrong. But every time we're on Match of the Day, they seem to say, yeah, the referee got that wrong. And then that's it. That's all that happens. That's what makes it even worse. It's not just this one incident. This is something that's been building up for the entire season, all the way from like Joe Worrell getting sent off against Man U and Willy Bolly and all those things. It's everything.
The 1865 Match Report.
It is Ryan here, and I have a question for you. What do you do when you win? Like, are you a fist pumper, a woohooer, a hand clapper, a high fiver? I kind of like the high five, but if you want to hone in on those winning moves, check out Chumba Casino. At ChumbaCasino.com, choose from hundreds of social casino-style games for your chance to redeem serious cash prizes. There are new game releases weekly, plus free daily bonuses, so don't wait. Start having the most fun ever at ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
We're pleased to announce that this episode of 1865, the Nottingham Forest podcast, is sponsored by Greene King Sport, where football is more than a game. Greene King Sport venues are showing every single televised Forest fixture over the 23-24 season. And with more than 900 sports pubs across the UK, it doesn't matter where you're based, you can catch every single minute of the action. If you download the Greene King Sport app, you won't just get 10% off all drinks anytime there's a match on the TV, but this month there's also free Guinness to be won and the chance to win one of 6 holidays. And you'll be supporting us here at 1865, the Nottingham Forest podcast. Now it's back to your podcast.
You're listening to 1865, the Nottingham Forest podcast.
Let's now hear the view from the opposition. It's over to Neil from the Anfield Wrap.
First and foremost, I thought it was mostly a 50-50 affair. I think first half, the one-on-one would have been offside from what I've seen back on television. But I thought that Forest did ever so well through the first half. I thought second half, what was noticeable, even coming through on television, was the atmosphere went up 2, 3, 4 levels in terms of intensity around the match and what everyone was about. And the desire to see Forest through, but also I think and I rarely say this, but I thought there was a bit of dissonance in that I thought the crowd was of the view there was 3 points here. I think players should not be getting booked for time wasting off corners. And it's one thing to will your side through until the bitter ends at 0-0, but ultimately Forest had shown they had enough to go head-to-head with Liverpool. And that was the moment where I just sort of thought, this is a bit odd. This isn't the sort of thing that should happen in the grand scheme of things. I thought Murillo was excellent over the course of the game in there as well. I think there was 2 or 3 other Forest players I think do really, really well. I thought it was Inewi comes on, makes it different, not least because Elanga goes wide, and he'd done all right through the middle of Elanga, but I thought as though it was then a different level of threat for Liverpool to have to deal with. In the end, we're obviously delighted. I mean, I don't want to be, I wouldn't even dream for a second of patronising anyone by acting like I'm not. Absolutely delighted. This is the sort of thing that happens in a season where you think you can win the league, and that's in part testament to Forest. Before the game, I said every single game this season that Nottingham Forest have played at home has been a live proposition as you go towards the final whistle. Today is no different. We get it and we pull it out the bag. I just sort of wonder whether or not, if Forest were a little bit more coherent, they could have found their way to win the game. But that's the difference between feeling secure in 11th and feeling as though your nerves at the bottom of the table where every single point counts. As it is, as a football match goes, as the whole thing progresses all the way through, Forest, they're a good side. I think they're a markedly better side than any of the teams that currently sit in the bottom 3. But there's obviously the points deduction that's hanging over. And I think that Liverpool can win the Football League.
Thanks, Neil, for the opposition view there. So yeah, as we were saying, Baz, the anger around this decision yesterday has been building over the course of the season. There's been a number of decisions that haven't gone Forest's way that should have done. And we're not seeing the standard of refereeing improving. We are still, after weeks and weeks, months even, of talk about the standard of refereeing, we are still finding ourselves on the receiving end of poor decisions. To a point where Match of the Day picked it up last night as well. They actually featured this decision for a change and really looked at it in depth and said, no, Forest have got every right to be annoyed by this. Both Shearer
But then they
and
still
Nunez.
didn't point out what Canate did. So
no, and again, it sets that precedent, doesn't it? That a player, if your team's under pressure, just pretend you've got a head injury because you'll win the ball back. And it's not good. And it remains to be seen now what the fallout will be from this. I mean, we're assuming Forest will probably get charged for the scenes at the end. And I think Forest will be looking for answers from PGMOL after this, certainly. Whether Mark Clattenburg will have something to say in that as well, and he will sort of liaise with them on behalf of Forest, who knows?
I went when I went back to the car. I was driving back, stuck in traffic. Apart from the fact that I noticed significantly more police vans with flashing lights everywhere because everyone was angry. Nuno's interview with Radio Nottingham was probably, I mean, I know he's a man of few words at the best of times, but he basically said, I'm not going to talk about the referee, let's talk about the game. And then he talked about the game for like 20 seconds and then walks off.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure Mark Clattenburg told him, don't say anything.
Yeah. And Colin Frey made a point, didn't he, after that interview, of saying, it wasn't me that entered the interview, it was Nuno. Yeah. He walked off after a minute and a half, and that was the end of the interview. So, yeah, you do wonder if there is a bit of an influence there with Clattenburg just saying...
And Clattenburg, as well, apparently said he was refused entry to talk to the referee after the game. So it does sound like the club are going to be using him as their way to the referees, which is exactly what he was hired for, I guess.
I think, really, when you look at it from how the season has panned out and the points now that Forest have potentially dropped, this yesterday would have been a great point against a really good Liverpool side.
I mean, arguably, I'd have said we probably deserve 3.
Yeah. If the chances go in, we deserve 3.
And yeah, we had them under the cosh at the end. Then that's probably the most galling thing of it was they looked like they were struggling. They looked like we looked like the team that was going to score, and it was taken away from us. I can remember when we've been doing this podcast for a long time now, and we always used to make a point of saying, I'm not going to talk about the referees because referees, especially like in League One and the Championship, you kind of expect referees to be rubbish. You don't have VAR and all that sort of stuff. So we made a point of saying we're not going to talk about the referees because we can only talk about the stuff that we can control. But I can remember in our Championship season under Steve Cooper, us saying, normally we don't talk about the referees, but we have to mention this. And then the last 2 seasons, it's almost like we've got nothing. It's the referees have imposed themselves on us rather than it being about the game. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, we're having to talk about them constantly because they are having that influence on the game at Forest's expense as well. And it's getting to the point now where you start to think it's deliberate because there's been so many incidents now.
As you said, everyone was very, very angry. And as I was storming out of the ground afterwards, there was a family like yelling at each other, going how unjust it was. And I went, yeah, but we're going to have the biggest collection of apologies in the Championship.
Yeah. And there you go. And that's it. That makes it all better, doesn't it? But just looking at the performances of the team as well, I think the back four and the keeper performed really well.
In fact, I've got to mention that save that Sells made as well.
Yeah.
That
Brilliant
was
save.
Amazing. And actually, I was thinking all the way through the game is like, we look like we've got an actual keeper. For the first time this season, I'm not terrified when the ball comes to the keeper.
Yeah, it just gave people assurance, didn't he? The defence looked more confident in front of him. And when he was called upon, I think it was Nunez, was it, with the header from close range? And he pulls off a brilliant save. I thought the ball had gone in. I was ready to kind of think, oh, that's it, 1-0 Liverpool. It's a fantastic save.
Incredible. And it's not just the defence as well. Dominguez was he wasn't like breaking forwards because his job was to keep stuff down. Yates was also tireless, and he wasn't doing his normal thing of just running into the back of someone and shoving him over. He was actually tackling and pressing the way he should. So the entire team played incredibly well. And I think, as I said, I think we were the better side for over the course of the 100 minutes.
Yeah, hard to disagree with that, really. Next up for Forest then, it's an away trip to Brighton next Sunday. I mean, I think it is going to be a difficult game. Brighton are hot and cold at the moment, but I think if Forest go into it with the same approach that they did against Liverpool, there's no reason why they can't come away with the points, referee permitting.
Yeah, well, so yeah, I mean, I had this when we played Brighton at home earlier in the season, and Steve Cooper was still in charge of Brighton's. De Zerbi's been like lauded as this genius manager, and I always say you can't tell about a manager until they're in trouble. So lauding him as a genius for while things are going well is too early to say that. However, his thing was always his players will stop and pass the ball like around the back four and stop and then invite you to come and press them. Because obviously high pressing is such a big part of the game across the top leagues. So he's built this tactic that invites you to come and press them, and then they can use the space that you've left to attack. Against Brighton, when we played them at home, we fell for it. We kept on going out to press them, and then they exploited it. Whereas I can't see Nuno's side doing that. I can't see. I think we're going to sit deep, and then we're going to wait for the chance for Elanga to break through or whatever, and hit them on the break properly, rather than when they want us to come forwards. So I'm reasonably confident about that one. But I was also thinking back to this time last year. Well, we're just at the beginning of March. And this time last year, I was like, yeah, we're down. There's no way we're staying up. And I have to say that I can't see any way we're staying up this year either.
What's clear is that Forest have got to get points on the board somehow and quickly. And with the likes of Luton, Palace and Fulham coming up as well, that feels like an opportunity to get some wins and try and put a bit of distance.
We're also worse against the lower teams.
Yeah, so it's one of those, isn't it? We'll leave it there and wrap this match report up. So thank you, Baz, and thank you, Neil, from the Anfield.app podcast for providing the opposition view. Thank you as well, listener, for joining us, and we will be back with you with our big Forest Ramble discussion pod in the next couple of days. Until then, thanks for listening and see you later.